This video is sponsored by Professional Photographers of America. Why should someone choose a Sony camera as their next camera? I think there are 5 reasons that I personally choose, 3 of which I think are undisputable. Watch the entire video and let me know if you agree when it's all done. The first reason, which I would say is one of the undisputable reasons why someone would choose a Sony camera, is the ecosystem. We hear that word tossed around all the time, especially when talking about brands like Apple, but we don't hear as much about that when we're talking about Sony cameras and the ecosystem that's built up in nearly 10 years since the original A7 was released. We're going into 2023, and at the moment, there are 70 first-party lenses from Sony covering just about every focal length that a photographer could ever want. That's leaps and bounds ahead of the competition, but we're just talking about the lenses that Sony has made for their own cameras. Looking into the third-party market, the lens selection gets even bigger. You already know brands like Tamron, Sigma, Rokinon, and many others make a variety of budget lenses, but I was pretty shocked to see just how many companies make E-mount lenses for Sony. As a matter of fact, let's play a little game really quick, and listen, don't cheat, okay? I want you to guess how many different companies make E-mount lenses for Sony. Now, don't include Sony in that number, but I want you to pause the video really quick and leave a comment with your guess. Whatever number it is that you think, just drop it in the comments and let's see how close you can get. All right, you ready? Okay, before I give you the number, I'm going to scroll the name of every brand that currently, as of 2022, makes lenses for Sony. Each of these brands makes at least one lens in E-mount, but many of these companies have an entire lineup of different lenses for both stills and video use. Based on my research, there are, as of this moment, 42 different brands that make lenses for Sony. We're talking fast lenses, tilt shift, probe lenses, all different kinds of glass, which currently makes Sony and their ecosystem one of the largest and most complete for any photographers that are looking to buy into a new system. So why does this even matter? Well, you're reading the current headlines that some other major brands aren't letting third-party companies, and they're actually suing them for making lenses for them in their mount. How long do you honestly think that it would take for them to catch up to the hundreds and hundreds of lenses that are currently available for Sony cameras? If we're being honest, I think we know the answer to that. Now, lenses aren't the only thing in the Sony ecosystem. You have accessories galore as well. Just about any accessory you can think of, from camera cages to microphones, battery grips, batteries, pretty much anything that you can think of, there are likely multiple options for each of those categories. More options means that as your needs change over time, chances are that there are going to be accessories that will meet those needs at just about any price point. Coming up in a moment, I'm going to share the second undisputed reason that someone might consider a Sony camera, but before we do that, I want to take a moment to share some exciting news from today's video sponsor, Professional Photographers of America. They have been a long-time sponsor here on my channel, so I know you've heard me mention them before, but today I want to tell you about PPA's signature annual event, Imaging USA. This highly anticipated photography conference will be held in Nashville, Tennessee, and it runs from January 22nd to the 24th. If you've never been to an Imaging USA event, you are missing out. It is the world's largest premier photography conference and expo that offers more than 90 expert-led sessions on topics like lighting, posing, business tactics, and a whole lot of other things. You also get opportunities to photograph professionally styled models to build up your portfolio, along with listening to inspiring keynote speakers that will have you pumped to get things going in 2023. I'm really looking forward to the energy that everyone brings to this event, and it's something that charges my batteries creatively. It truly is an amazing event, and I'll hopefully be able to see you there in person. Be sure to click the link in the description to grab your free Expo Pass for Imaging USA 2023 and get more info on this exciting event. So this next thing on my list is the lens tech that Sony is putting into their first-party lenses. While many lens makers have narrowed the conversation around lenses to optics only, there is more to a lens than just the optics and the glass. Sony has been killing it lately with some awesome lenses that are not only sharp optically, but lenses that can keep up with all of the advanced focusing systems that you'd find in a modern camera like, for example, the Sony a7R5. Take a lens like the 50 f1.2 G Master. If you were to compare that lens to the current competition, you'll find that not only does this lens have razor sharp focus at f1.2, but it's doing that while keeping the lens compact and light. This is the case for most of the lenses in the lineup, including some of my favorites, the 70-200 G Master version 2, the 135 f1.8 G Master, and many others. The key thing that I don't hear people talking about is the inclusion of next generation linear motors inside of these lenses. Watch a few videos on YouTube showing how lens motors work, and you'll see just how old-fashioned some of the competition's lenses are that are being made out there. I'm gonna make an entire video just on this topic alone in the coming weeks. I own several different Sony lenses, and some of the things that I used to deal with when I used to use DSLR era glass, things like mist or soft focus and chromatic aberration, these are things that I don't deal with as much anymore. I've heard a lot of YouTubers talking about how those older lenses weren't as clinical, and that's what made them more interesting. And in my opinion, I prefer getting sharp clinical results that I can add character and texture to in post-production. I would rather start off with something that looks awesome, and I could always go down from there if I wanted to add character to the shot. But if I start with a lower quality shot, there aren't any realistic ways to get the higher quality look that you're getting from Sony lenses right out of the box. The next reason on my list, and this is also an undisputed one, is the Sony community support. I don't know if you realize this, but for years now, Sony has invested millions of dollars in helping to support and grow the photographic community. They hold live and virtual events where they pay famous, award-winning photographers to come out and teach their techniques at no charge to the community. They put on live streams doing the same exact thing so people from around the world can join in, and they even post weekly content on the Sony Alpha Universe YouTube channel. Not sure if you knew this, but I have videos releasing on that channel all the time. It's like a second home to me, but this is another area where they invest in the community and to help them take better images. A lot of the information is relevant even if you don't shoot with a Sony camera. They have programs to support various communities, such as the Alpha Female program, and all of this is done to help keep the photography community thriving. During the pandemic, Sony was hosting virtual workshops for free that anyone could attend and was doing it almost every 3 months. I had the opportunity to not only teach at those events, but also to be a host for many of them. And I heard firsthand from photographers how it got them through the isolation and the boredom and all the stuff that came with what's been going on these past 2 years. I think it's safe to say that no other camera brand has supported photographers more than Sony through these various community events, and you'll continue to see that moving forward. Another reason why someone should choose Sony cameras, and it's one of the big reasons for me personally, is the variety that they offer. If you're taking photos for fun, then for sure you'll find a specific camera that will work for whatever your needs are. But if you're a professional, you already know that you need different tools for different jobs. Sometimes a professional full-frame camera like the a7R5 might be the right choice, but maybe you shoot vlogs and you want something simple and quick to use, then maybe something like the ZV-1 would be better. Sony has cameras that have sensors ranging from 1 inch all the way up to full frame, and each of them have an entire ecosystem of lenses and accessories to help you achieve your creative goals. Whether you want something simple and compact like a ZV-1, or maybe you want to have a nice travel camera like the ZV-E10, where you could take stills and you could take videos, they have options for that. If you want to get into professional photography and video, then you have all sorts of options there too. But the variety that Sony offers with their lineup is really plain to see. They also offer some of their best tech across those different systems, so you're not seeing cameras being heavily watered down in features as you go down the line. This next one is borderline undisputed, okay? As a reason why someone might choose a Sony camera, and that's their head start in the mirrorless game. Sony has been in the mirrorless arena for close to, if not over a decade. They have gone through the growing pains, the research and the development and all of that stuff to bring cameras and lenses to the market that are refined. Something you don't see from camera companies often is that their engineers truly listen to the community. I personally have had countless meetings with Sony and their engineers over the past 7 years, and I filled up notebooks with feedback on their products. And with each generation of gear that comes out, you're seeing not just my feedback, but that of tens of thousands of photographers who have shared their thoughts publicly and privately. So here's the funny thing. There was a time when I used Sony cameras where it was unfathomable that anyone would use something other than a DSLR. I remember when I switched to Sony back in 2014, I had photography friends of mine asking me if I had fell on hard times since I was selling all my DSLR stuff and going with Sony. I saw way back then, they only had 7 lenses at the time, but I saw way back then that mirrorless cameras were going to change the way that people take photographs, just like smartphones did. But most photographers back then, and even the top camera makers, they didn't see mirrorless cameras as serious competition. Then 2018 rolls around and you get these big camera makers that are jumping into mirrorless and jumping into those waters and having to go through all of the same growing pains that Sony had 5 years prior. Meanwhile, Sony grew from that and they were putting out some of the best cameras and lenses that had features that people had been asking for and at price points that they eventually spelled the end for DSLR cameras. Now hear me out, I'm not saying you can't take a great image with whatever camera brand that you might be thinking of, but these are my top 5 reasons why I have and continue to choose Sony cameras as we head into 2023. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and before you head out, check out this video that you see on the screen. It's got some of my best photography advice, and I don't want you to miss it.